Hello and welcome to the Myschool channel. My name is Angela, and in this video we're going to continue tackling the government JAMB question for the year 2024. Please stay with us, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Myschool channel. Like I said earlier, we're going to be tackling the government JAMB question for the year 2024. So in this video, we're going to be focusing on questions 26 to 50. Let's begin with question 26. The fundamental objective guiding a nation's foreign policy is A. National interest, B. Foreign interest, C. African interest, and D. Colonial interest. The answer to this question is option A. National interest. So foreign policy are those aims, those objectives that a nation intends to achieve in terms of guarding its own interest as it relates with other countries of the world. So it's the national interest of the country that foreign policy focuses on. What interest does the nation intend to gain as it relates with other countries of the world? So it is not concerned with foreign interests, it's not concerned with the interest of the foreigners, but rather on its own interest. So African interests are those interests that relates to African countries, not different countries of the world. They're asking the objective of every nation's foreign policy. So the objective of every nation's foreign policy is its own interest. So option A, national interest, is the answer to this question. Question 27. The fundamental law containing the rules and principles governing a country is the A, Convention, B, Constitution, C, Acts of Parliament, and D, Judicial Review. The answer to this question is option B, Constitution. Constitution is the fundamental law guiding the governing of a particular country. So our constitution here in Nigeria contains all of those laws that are guiding the governing of the country. The legislature, the executive, and the judiciary list out the powers and the functions of each of these different organs of government and how they should function in society when it comes to making the law, enforcing the law, and interpreting the law. So that is what the constitution is all about. Acts of Parliament are also laws, but they are not fundamental laws. They are laws that are made based on emerging issues in the society. So judicial review is one of the methods of checks and balances made by the judiciary. The judiciary checks on the legislature and the executive by reviewing their actions to determine whether they are constitutional or not. So it is not the fundamental law guiding the governing of the country. Convention is one of the sources of the constitution. You see that in a lot of countries that practice the use of the unwritten constitution. They make laws based on conventions. So the answer to this question is constitution because it is the body of fundamental laws that guide the governing of the country. So option B, constitution, is the answer to this question. Question 28. The electoral process in a representative government does not include A, free and fair elections, B, free press, C, independent electoral commission, and D, registration of birth. The answer to this question is option D, registration of birth. Registration of birth is not included in the electoral process. That is done as soon as someone is born. So the electoral process consists of free and fair elections. That means elections should be conducted in a free and fair manner. There should be no bias for any political party that is contesting in that election. The press should also be free during the electoral process to ensure that important information are passed on to the citizens who are electing the people into power. Then the Independent Electoral Commission is also very important, very vital to the electoral process. You have to have an electoral commission that conducts the election that is independent of the influence of the organs of governments in power. So registration of birth is not important in the electoral process. Option D is the answer to this question. Question 29. The Aburi Accord was a popular phrase during the administration of A. Agoyin Ironsi, B. Murtala Mohammed, C. Yakubu Gowon, and D. Olusegun Obasanjo. The answer to this question is option C. Yakubu Gowon. The Aburi Accord or the Aburi Declaration was what resulted from a meeting between the delegates from the Nigerian federal government led by General Yakubu Gowon and delegates from the eastern region of Nigeria at that time led by Colonel Chukwu Emeka Odumegu Ojukwu. So the reason for them meeting in Aburi, Ghana to discuss an accord, to discuss this declaration is so that they can prevent an all-out war between the federal government of Nigeria and the eastern region. So this took place between the 4th of January and the 5th of January in 1967 before the Civil War began. So this shows that the Abruzzo Accord or declaration was not fruitful. It did not perform the function that it was designed to perform. After the Abruzzo Accord, the meeting of the Abruzzo Accord, there was an all-out war in Nigeria. So the answer to this question is option C, Yakubu Gowon. Question 30. The commission that examines complaints of civil wrongs committed by government employees is A. Public Complaints Commission, B. Civil Service Commission, C. Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and D. Judicial Service Commission. The answer to this question is option A, Public Complaints Commission. The Public Complaints Commission is a commission that is designed to examine complaints made by citizens about the wrongdoings of government officials. So they monitor the civil service and ensure that they continue to abide by the rules and regulations, especially when a complaint has been filed against a particular civil servant. So they examine these complaints, they investigate the matter, and then they send recommendations to the government on how the civil servants can be punished at the end of the day. So the Public Complaints Commission is only allowed to offer recommendation. They cannot actually mete out punitive actions against the civil servants. So you can learn more about the Public Complaints Commission in our government topic by topic video lesson, Civil Service. So you can do that by going down to the link in the description below. So the Civil Service Commission is responsible for employing, recruiting, and dismissing civil servants. So that is their main function. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is a law enforcement agency. The Judicial Service Commission is responsible for administering the affairs of the judiciary, for employing them, for recruiting them, and for recommending justices to the legislature and the executive for appointments. So the answer to this question is option A, Public Complaints Commission. Question 31. Dual citizenship was a feature of the A, Portuguese colonial system, B, German colonial system, C, British colonial system, and D, French colonial system. The answer to this question is option D, French colonial system. Dual citizenship was a feature of the French colonial system. During the French colonial rule in French West Africa, they offered dual citizenship for citizens of the 4 communes in Senegal. Senegal was one of the colonies of French West Africa. So they gave them citizenship of both French West Africa and France. So this was an important feature in the French colonial system. Option D is the answer to this question. Question 32. Which of these is a major challenge of public operations in Nigeria? Option A, political interference, B, political instability, C, shortage of staff, and D, industrial disputes. The answer to this question is option A, political interference. Political interference is the major challenge of public operations. Public operations are designed to provide essential services to the citizens, but they operate under the government. The government is responsible for controlling the affairs of the public corporation. But a lot of times, the government interferes in the activities of public corporations. They do this by enforcing a lot of regulations on these corporations and prevents them from competing in the market. So when they are not able to compete in the market, they are not able to provide quality services for the citizens. And as a result of that, public corporations do not earn a lot of profit at the end of the day that they can put back into the public corporation to provide more services to the citizens. There is also a lot of issues on corruption and misuse of funds in the public corporation as a result of these regulations that have been imposed by the government. So political interference is the major challenge in public corporations. Option A is the answer to this question. Question 33. Lack of separation of power is a feature of A, presidential system, B, cabinet system, C, democratic governments, and D, military governments. The answer to this question is option D, military governments. So when we're talking about separation of power, we're talking about separating the functions, the powers and functions of the different organs of government, the legislature, the executive, and judiciary. These organs of government should be operating independently of one another. So in a military government, there is a lack of separation of power because the military leader at the top, the head of state in that particular country where military rule is practiced, takes a lot of the legislative, executive, and judicial functions. They take legislative functions by offering decrees. Decrees are the laws during a military rule. They suspend the constitution and only the decrees are allowed to be enforced within the states. They are also responsible for enforcing the law, and sometimes they also appoint extrajudicial councils such as tribunals to try those who have violated these decrees. So all of this shows that there is a lack of separation of power in the military governments. It may feel like option B, cabinet system, is the answer because there is a fusion of legislative and executive power which is a kind of a violation of the principle of separation of power. But please note that there's still separation of power in this particular system, as each of these organs of government are still checking on one another, and they still operate independently of each other in certain situations. So the best answer to this question is option D, military government. Question 34. An economic system that encourages state ownership and control of the means of production is A. Socialism, B. Communism, C. Fascism, and D. Capitalism. The answer to this question is option A, socialism. Socialism is a system of government whereby the state controls the means of production and distribution of wealth. That means the power to own goods within society rests in the hands of the state itself. It may feel like communism is the answer, but please note that communism is a system where there is communal ownership of the means of production and distribution of wealth. Communism is an extreme form of socialism. So it is not state ownership, it is communal ownership of the means of production. The people own the means of production collectively and not the state itself. So option A, socialism, is the answer to this question. Do you know you can take practice questions with our simulated JAMB CBT past question? All you need to do is to go down to the link in the description below. This takes you to the Myschool website, where you can download the Myschool mobile app for your Android devices and the Myschool software for your laptops and computers. Please go ahead and start practicing. Now on to question 35. Which local government reform in Nigeria prevented traditional rulers from engaging in politics? Option A, the 1960 reform, B, the 1963 reform, C, the 1976 reform, and D, the 1979 reform. The answer to this question is option C, the 1976 reform. So in 1976, the military government at the time proposed a reform of the local governments whereby they transitioned from a multiple system of government to a single-tier, all-purpose governments of the local regions within the country. So they appointed local government chairmen and a council to administer the affairs of the local governments. So this led to the elimination of traditional rulers being the leaders at these various local government areas. So it prevented traditional rulers from engaging in politics. So option C, the 1976 reforms, is the answer to this question. I believe you're enjoying this content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly, tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos. Question 36. Pressure groups are different from political parties because they A. Analyze elections, B. Articulate interests, C. Aggregate interest, and D. Contest elections. The answer to this question is option B. Articulate interests. While pressure groups are responsible for articulating the interest of the members of that group, political parties are responsible for aggregating interest and contesting in elections. Pressure groups consist of a group of people who have similar interests who come together to advocate for their interests on behalf of the members of that group to the government. So they do this by lobbying the government to ensure that they enforce policies that are in their favor. So they articulate the interest of the members within their group. Examples of pressure group, we have the Nigerian Union of Teachers, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, and so on. So these are pressure groups. They help to articulate the interest of their members. But political parties, on the other hand, help to aggregate the interest of the people within the country. So they bring together a group of people who have similar interests and create a political party so that they can contest for election. So they help to bring together the interest of people, to aggregate the interest of people. They also contest in elections. So during an election cycle, they present a candidate who help to represent a particular region in the country or the country as a whole, so that they can contest in elections and create policies that are based on the interest of the people within that political party. So the answer to this question is articulate interest, because that is the primary function of pressure groups. Option B is the answer to this question. Question 37. A union of states with a common recognized authority is A. Federal system, B. Unitary system, C. Representative system, and D. Confederal system. The answer to this question is option A, federal system. A federal system is a system of government whereby power is shared between the central unit and the component units. So this component unit is this union of states. We have so many different states in a federal system, and they come together under a common authority. This common authority helps to unite these different states together so that they can make decisions as a whole, while the states still maintain autonomy, making decisions that are relevant to their particular region. So that is what a federal system is all about. Option A, federal system, is the answer to this question. Question 38. The famous Italian fascist leader was A. Mao Zedong, B. Kim Jong-un, C. Joseph Stalin, and D. Benito Mussolini. The answer to this question is option D, Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini was the famous Italian fascist leader. A fascist system is a system of government whereby there is a supreme leader who has total control of all the activities within the state and denies the personal liberty of the citizens. So all of these are features that were maintained under Benito Mussolini when he ruled Italy. Joseph Stalin was a communist leader. He was authoritarian just like the rest of the option, but his system of government was communism. For Kim Jong-un, it is also communism. He is the supreme leader of North Korea. Then we have Mao Zedong, who is also a communist. So option A, B, and C are communist leaders, but Benito Mussolini is a fascist leader. Option D is the answer to this question. Question 39. Aggregate view of individuals in a society is referred to as A, public outcry, B, people's voice, C, popular opinion, and D, public opinion. The answer to this question is option D, public opinion. Public opinion is the view held by the majority of people within the society on an issue of public importance. So that is the aggregate view of the individuals in a society. So option D, public opinion, is the answer to this question. Question 40. The principle of civil service that guarantees the employment of public workers is A, neutralism, B, anonymity, C, permanence, and D, loyalty. The answer to this question is option C, permanence. Permanence is the principle of the civil service that guarantees that the employees that are employed within the civil service continue to have their job right until retirement. So it helps to ensure that the jobs of the civil servants are safe and they can perform their duties properly. So neutralism, anonymity, and loyalty are other principles of the civil service. Neutralism means that they do not belong to any political party. They do not affiliate with any political party so that they can help to implement the policies of whatever government that is in power. The principle of anonymity means that they are not allowed to engage with the media on a personal level. And loyalty means that they are loyal to the civil service regardless of the government in power. So the answer to this question is option C, permanence. Question 41. The fragmented nature of the Igbo pre-colonial political system qualified it to be described as A, centralized in nature, B, ceremonial political arrangements, C, acephalous in nature, and D, republican system. The answer to this question is option C, acephalous in nature. So the Igbo pre-colonial system was acephalous in nature. That means they were decentralized in nature. They do not have a central leader who is in charge of the Igbo pre-colonial system. Rather, each of the villages within the Igbo pre-colonial system were allowed to rule themselves and make decisions based on the opinions and recommendations from the people. So for each village, there are elders of the village who help to conduct public meetings where the villagers come together to make decisions for themselves. So they were decentralized in nature. They did not have a central leader who was in charge of the entire Igbo people. So option C, acephalous in nature, is the answer to this question. Question 42. Which of these colonial constitutions in Nigeria endured for the longest period? Option A, Richard, B, Clifford, C, Macpherson, and D, Littleton. The answer to this question is option B, Clifford. The Clifford Constitution of 1922 lasted until 1946, where the Richard Constitution was adopted. The Richard Constitution lasted from 1946 down to 1951, where the Macpherson Constitution was adopted. Then Macpherson lasted from 1951 to 54, when the Littleton Constitution was adopted. The Littleton Constitution was the constitution that was adopted from 1954 right until independence in 1960. So the Clifford Constitution lasted the longest. Option B is the answer to this question. Question 43. One of these is not an organ of Commonwealth of Nations. Option A, Assembly of Heads of States and Governments, B, Commonwealth Secretariat, C, Conference of Prime Ministers, and D, Fund for Technical Cooperation. The answer to this question is option A, Assembly of Heads of States and Governments. The Assembly of Heads of States and Governments is an organ of the African Union and not the Commonwealth of Nations. So the Assembly of Heads of States and Governments consists of all the heads of states and governments who come together to make decisions on behalf of the African Union. The Commonwealth Secretariat is the secretariat that is in charge of the day-to-day administration of the Commonwealth of Nations. They help to implement policies made during the Conference of Prime Ministers. The Conference of Prime Ministers is made up of all the prime ministers that belong to the Commonwealth of Nations. Then the Fund for Technical Cooperation is one of the agencies within the Commonwealth. So the answer to this question is option A, Assembly of Heads of States and Governments. Question 44. The organs of ECOWAS do not include the A. Community Tribunal, B. Council of Ministers, C. Secretariat, and D. Conference. The answer to this question is option D. Conference. Conference is not an organ of ECOWAS. Community Tribunal is one of the organs. They are responsible for adjudicating cases that are brought forward before the ECOWAS. The Council of Ministers consists of the Minister of Foreign Affairs for each of the different member states. They come together to create policies on behalf of ECOWAS. Then the Secretariat is responsible for implementing those policies. But conference is not one of the organs of ECOWAS. Option D is the answer to this question. Do you have a question? Please feel free to ask your question by going down to the link in the description below. This takes you to my school website where you can ask your question and the solution will be provided to you within a short period of time. Now to question 45. ECOWAS Secretariat is located in A. Accra, B. Abuja, C. Niamey, and D. Cotonou. The answer to this question is option B. Abuja. Abuja is the administrative capital of ECOWAS, and this is where the Secretariat, the organ of ECOWAS responsible for implementing policies, this is where they are located. The financial headquarters, on the other hand, is in Lomé, Togo. So option B. Abuja is the answer to this question. Do you have a better explanation or solution to any of these questions? If you do, please go down to the comment section below, indicate the question number and the solution you'd like to share. Question 46. Price stability in the international oil markets is the major objective of the A. UN, B. WTO, C. OPEC, and D. AU. The answer to this question is option C. OPEC. So OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is responsible for maintaining the stability of price in the international oil markets. This is done to prevent fluctuation of price so that every member of this OPEC, those are oil producing companies, they can benefit from the sales of oil in the international market. If every country is selling price at different rates, some will benefit, others will not. But when they belong to this Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, they can negotiate on how to stabilize the price so that everybody can equally benefit from the production and sales of oil. So option A is the United Nations, option B is the World Trade Organization, and option D is the African Union. The United Nations is an international organization that consists of all countries of the world designed to maintain world peace. The World Trade Organization deals with financial affairs among different countries of the world. The African Union is an international organization for African countries. They discuss how African countries can help to develop one another. So option C, OPEC, or the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, is the answer to this question. Question 47. Nigeria played fundamental roles in the creation of A. ECOWAS, B. OPEC, C. UN, and D. Commonwealth. The answer to this question is option A. ECOWAS. ECOWAS, or the Economic Community of West African States, was an international organization that was created by both General Yakubu Gowon of Nigeria and President Eyadema of Togo. They came together to create these economic communities so that the various West African countries can come together to discuss how they can advance each of their countries economically. So option A, ECOWAS, is the answer to this question. Question 48. The most effective instrument adopted by Nigeria against the East-West Cold War in the 1960s was A. Good neighborliness, B. Africa as the centerpiece, C. Anti-apartheid stand, and D. Non-alignment policy. The answer to this question is option D. Non-alignment policy. So the non-alignment policy is the policy that Nigeria did not belong to any of the two power blocks that were engaged in a war during the Cold War. So the East Power Bloc is the communist bloc headed by Russia, and the West Power Bloc is the capitalist bloc headed by the United States of America. So it was a battle of ideologies. They battled with each other in terms of how governments should be organized in different countries of the world. So this Cold War began in the 1960s and ended in the 1990s. So Nigeria chose not to align with either of these ideologies and chose to focus on its own national interest and Africa's interest as well. But it is the non-alignment policy that was the most effective instrument against this East-West Cold War. Option D is the answer to this question. Question 49. The bipolar world was a major factor for the formation of A. Non-aligned movements, B. Technical Aid Corps, C. NEPAD, and D. ECOMOG. The answer to this question is option A. Non-aligned movements. Once again, the non-aligned movements consist of a group of countries that do not belong to any of the ideological power bloc in the 1960s. We're talking about the East and the West, the communist and the capitalist. So they do not belong to either of this power bloc, and they chose to come together as a group to discuss how they can move their nations forward. So option A, non-aligned movements, is the answer to this question. Question 50. The June 12 election in Nigeria was annulled by the regime of A. Olusegun Obasanjo, B. Ibrahim Babangida, C. Muhammadu Buhari, and D. Yakubu Gowon. The answer to this question is option B, Ibrahim Babangida. So Ibrahim Babangida took over power from Muhammadu Buhari in 1985, and then he ruled till 1993. The reason why he had to step down, or while another military leader took over power from him, was because around the 1990s, he was already being pressured by the people to hand over power to civilian rule. And as a result of that pressure, he decided to conduct an election in 1993. For the election, he decided for the country that only 2 political parties should be created. So the 2 political parties that were created for this June 12 election was the NRC, which had the presidential candidate Alhaji Tofa, and the SDP, which had the presidential candidate MKO Abiola. So both political parties contested in the June 12 election. But at the end of the day, MKO Abiola won. But this result was contested by Ibrahim Babangida himself, and he chose to annul the election. So the June 12 election in Nigeria was annulled by the regime of Ibrahim Babangida. Option B is the answer to this question. I believe you're enjoying this content. If yes, please do not forget to hit the like button, click on the subscribe button, and lastly tap on the notification bell to get informed as soon as we release the next videos.